right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Very glad to have you here with us today. Quite a couple of attendees, quite a couple of interesting people part of this webinar today. And I am very honored to introduce this webinar to you, and most of all honored to have a great co-host with me today from KPMG. And ladies first, so Nadine, maybe you could quickly introduce yourself before handing over back to me so that I can walk everybody through the agenda and set the scene for what we're going to be discussing today.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me on this webinar. I really appreciate it. Happy to share what we're doing with ideation and innovation at KPMG. I've been with the firm for about 14 years now and leading innovation, standing up innovation capabilities first in the US and then globally. Prior to that, I was on Bank of America's enterprise innovation team and launched their enterprise innovation program as well.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Nadine. Now, before we go in, a couple of words to myself. My name is Christopher. I am a lead solution engineer with ITONICS, and my job is mainly behind the scenes, mostly when it comes to idea management. So myself and my team, we're mostly responsible to actually take ideation concepts and support them through technology and information systems. And my day today, or my role during our webinar today, will mainly consist of course, setting the scene. However, before we do that, maybe some quick housekeeping rules. We have a Q&A section in the bottom of your screens available there. So you can at any point in time during the webinar pose your questions directly to us. We have dedicated a time slot at the end of this webinar for Q&A. So we're going to collect all of your ideas on questions, and we're going to be sharing them at the end. Now, with regards to agenda, what we're going to do after this introduction is we're going to talk a bit, okay, how did we get here with regards to ideation, how it has developed and where we are today, before then handing it over to Nadine to give some context on how KPMG is deploying new tools, new methods to actually effectively support ideation activities within the firm. And then, of course, we're going to wrap it up with about 10 to 15 minutes Q&A. Right, without further ado, let's maybe talk a bit about how we got here. Now, everybody that's part of this webinar presumably knows what idea management is and what ideation is. Nevertheless, I kind of want to set the scene a bit and kind of talk about, okay, where we come from and give some reasoning why we are where we are today. So the earliest forms of ideation obviously are the result of something called the industrialization, where new manufacturing capabilities arose, which also led to the possibilities of improving efficiency, improving processes. So the first kind of attempts at structured ideation were to actually put physical boxes in place where employees, specifically on manufacturing lines, could produce input on how they wanted to have the manufacturing capabilities improved. And that, of course, carried over into the 20th century, where those capabilities were fully fledged out into what we know as continuous process improvement under frameworks and methodologies such as Kaizen, stemming from Japan, and the lean methodology. And that was at some point not enough, right? Because it's not just enough improving all the time. We also need to make sure that we're developing and facilitating new ideas, not just improvements. And that's where we are today. And that's what we call modern day ideation, modern day crowdsourcing, effectively tapping into the collective intelligence of our workforce and using it as a main driver for innovation activities. And yeah, quite simply put, to enable everybody to participate and make sure that we stay competitive. Now, with modern ideation and these crowdsourcing approaches come a couple of pitfalls. Nadine is going to talk a bit later about how that looks like in a real world environment and how some of those pitfalls can, of course, be mitigated. But just to make sure that we're all aligned here, we can kind of, or what we see with the partners that we work with, and specifically when we actually start implementing ideation systems and concepts within our partner firms, within our clients, and within our own organization, we can segregate the pitfalls into two distinct categories, one of them being actual execution challenges. And ideation is great. Everybody does ideation. But one thing that really is lacking is the subsequent implementation, right? Some of the discussions that I have had over the past years have always been centered around, well, what happens after we've had an idea, after we've developed the idea? What happens with it? Do we actually have something actionable that results out of it? And usually the answer to that question is we don't really know, right? Because ideas just are swallowed up by day-to-day operations and by just a huge black hole, because there's no real implementation structure that supports the subsequent activities that should come after we have concluded our ideation efforts. That is also goes hand in hand with not really being able to effectively report on how we measure success in ideation, right? Every company does it differently. Every partner that we work with does it differently. And it's very hard to formalize, right? It's very hard to kind of find those relevant metrics and to really define, okay, how do we establish and how do we report on success? How do we define that? And usually what happens, and as a result of that, is to say, right, we just need ideas and we need to collect as many as just possible. And it's quantity over quality, right? We are enabling everybody to participate, but we're not making sure that everybody has the right means to actually provide high quality input, or at least mature an idea to a high quality idea. And the other side of that double-edged sword is, of course, then also the strategic pitfalls, the misalignment that we have, right? In an ideal world, ideation would be something that would be done and undertaken organization-wide. The reality is most, especially large corporations, work in silos. So that also means that ideations happen within respective departments, within business units, which really doesn't make sure and ensure that we can cross-pollinate our ideation efforts from other teams to bring in more creativity, more export knowledge, more domain knowledge that would actually enable us to potentially generate something really truly new. And on top of that, because also we are ideating in silos, we're kind of detaching ideation activities from the overall organization's business priorities, meaning there's no real strategic alignment behind, okay, what areas do we need to collect ideas in? Why are we actually collecting ideas? And what do we want to get out of this? And lastly, ideation is something that has been around for a long time, as we saw earlier, various shapes and forms. However, it has been around so long that right now it is being perceived as a given fact, right? What that leads to is it leads to executive leadership just saying, right, well, this is what we've always done, right? And there's a lack of buy-in. And if there's lack of buy-in, there's a lack of sponsorship at the end, which is again needed for the actual implementation piece of it. So how can we address that? Again, Nadine will kind of discuss that in a real world setting, just to give some context. We need to really rethink how we actually see and place ideation within the organization. And I mentioned earlier, crowdsourcing and ideation is something that historically is historically grown and has historically been seen as being equivalent to innovation. However, we need to take a step back and really be honest with ourselves and say, okay, ideation, it does not equal innovation. Ideation is, however, a central part of innovation, right? And that's how we need to see it. We need to see it as a focal point of our innovation activities. But in order to make sure that we do it right, we need to embed it into our organizational context, and we need to make sure that we align it with, first of all, again, our strategic goals. So why are we ideating? What do we want to get out of it? How does it support us in our business priorities, as well as embedded in our culture, right? We need everybody to understand what ideation is good for, how they can participate, and we need to be able to effectively communicate that message. And then on top of that, in order to further enable everybody to participate effectively, we need to set the scene, right? And so what we need to understand is the environment that we operate in, because there's no sense in just ideating and looking for the next big thing without actually knowing where to look, right? And knowing where to look stems from knowing where we are and knowing what we can and what we can't do. And that means that we need to make sure that we are aware of our capabilities, that we are aware of our market environments, that we are aware of what our competitors are doing, that we really know our strengths and our weaknesses, and can then say, okay, we need to develop capabilities to either address those weaknesses or identify capabilities to leverage our strengths. And those are the areas that we should be ideating. And then lastly, in order to make sure that we don't have that black hole effect that I mentioned earlier, we really need to make sure that ideation and all of the ideas that we collect an integral part of our overall product, services, and project portfolio, so that we can then also connect the ideas that we generate back to the results that we generate at the end, which also allows us to report and kind of validate, right, look, this is what has dropped out of our idea and ideation and idea management portfolio. And not just the strategy, not just how we see ideation in an overall organizational context and organizational perspective is important, it's also important how we actually enable everybody to participate in our ideation activities. And that's why you're here today. We want to, of course, see some examples of how that actually works. And Nadine has prepared some great examples, which I'm looking forward to a bit later. But it also means that with an ever-changing technological landscape, we need to provide the right tool, we need to provide the right training, the right communities and processes to kind of enable that. And maybe to set the scene, of course, with the rise of artificial intelligence, whether it would be generative AI, whether it would be models that help us with data analysis, there's a lot of new capabilities that have arisen, and it is our job to kind of make sure, okay, how can we enable others through the rise in these new technological capabilities to ideate better and to facilitate ideation. And I've brought a bit of research with me today just to showcase what's actually happening right now. AI, specifically generative AI, currently is more often than not being used to generate ideas, right? And we can actually see that when it comes to creativity scoring, we as humans are already being outperformed. But does that mean that AI is actually already better than us? Or does that mean that we need to see it as a tool that can enable and facilitate how we ideate, rather than replacing our creativity, rather than replacing our ability to generate ideas and also curate them? And that's my handover point, where I'm going to hand over to Nadine to kind of put that into the context of KPMG, give us some examples, and also to talk about how AI and these new technological developments have impacted ideation at KPMG. Nadine, over to you.
Thank you very much. I am starting to share my screen now. I am calling in from Clearwater, Florida. All right, great. So for our agenda today, on my presentation, we'll talk a little bit about the KPMG Global Innovation and Emerging Tech Team, what we do. We'll talk about our open innovation ecosystem and who we collaborate with. And then we'll talk about AI and ideation and give you an example as well. So the KPMG Global Innovation Emerging Tech Team has been established to drive global innovation across our member firms, and KPMG is made up of 143 member firms worldwide. So we sit in KPMG International, and we support all of these member firms, and that those member firms have 273,000 people across those member firms. So large company, one of the big four. We handle audit, advisory, and tax services. For the end-to-end innovation program that we cover, it starts at strategic foresight, where we're looking at emerging tech, competitor data, signals, trends, things like that. And that really informs our ideation activities so that we can focus on the key items that are the most strategic and have an impact to our clients, to our markets, and our business. The center part is the ideation, which is where we're going to focus our presentation on today. And that is where we handle various types of crowdsourcing and innovation challenges and ways to generate new ideas in order to solve for key challenges. And then finally, the innovation portfolio. We work at the global level to drive transparency into what really is happening in innovation at our local member firms. And are we investing in the right things, making sure that we are, using globally what we can to, scale and accelerate innovation and not create from scratch if we don't have to. All right, moving on.
That being said, Nadine, maybe specifically chiming in, you mentioned transparency here, and one of the pitfalls that we saw earlier is obviously being able to effectively communicate and engage with people that we want to participate. Now, we know that KPMG is quite large. We know that this is now a central function. So how do you actually ensure that everybody knows what's going on, everybody is informed about and also committed to your offering here?
Great question. So we have 4 key areas under our purview. First is KPMG Illuminate, and that is the firm's end-to-end innovation program and solution. It includes the technology that underlies our innovation program, the people around it, the networks around it, the tools and the processes, and all of the IP behind that. We also have Illuminate as a service. So we offer innovation management consulting to our clients. We also have a global innovation fund that is used to provide seed investment to emerging tech ideas to bring them to life. And that is done through our global emerging tech incubator. And our incubator is in place to address the exact topic that you brought up earlier, Chris, is the, what happens to ideas after they get selected as a winning idea. And so that incubator is in place to develop a proof of concept from every winning idea that gets funded at the global level, and be able to develop it, package it, scale it globally for use by all the member firms, and then be able to harvest client credentials coming out of that for repeat use. So we have various global innovation or global communications channels that we leverage, including newsletters and distribution groups and things like that. We have portal pages and all of that. So we always make sure that any innovation challenge that we have has a partner sponsor, has funding to fund a winning idea, and has announces at least one winner for those innovation challenges. And that's how we ensure that the voice of our people and our participants is heard, and that we are dedicating time and money and ensuring that the ideas don't go into that black box. All right. Next, we will talk about collaborating across our innovation ecosystem. So we engage with various external parties as well as our internal professionals across our open innovation ecosystem to drive, key challenges, solving for those, co-developing solutions, and investing in partnerships or startups. With that, we work very closely with our clients, alliance partners, nonprofits, students, startups, analysts, and our suppliers. And we do that in various ways. So we have established, incubators and accelerators to solve for big problems in partnership, and collaborating with our open innovation ecosystem. We host innovation challenges, hackathons, to crowdsource ideas from all of these parties and ensure that we have the diverse perspectives, and we build together. So we co-innovate, we co-build, especially with our clients and alliance partners, to ensure that we are meeting client needs and developing what they want and will solve for their key challenges, as well as partnering with our alliances to go to market with solutions that benefit our common clients.
If I could just interject and maybe just
pose
a question directly there. And one thing that we always see is that it's, as soon as you tap into a large knowledge pool, that there is some overlap sometimes. So a large part of managing ideas and managing them effectively is also kind of identifying those overlaps and then kind of managing those duplications potentially, or those very similar ideas. So how do you approach this?
Yeah, so for all of our innovation challenges, we evaluate every idea. And when we identify those overlaps, those duplicate submissions, things that are really tied together, we'll actually invite the submitters to join teams. And any ideas that are moving forward to semifinals or to become finalists or winners of the investment, we will actually invite them to build their business case together as a single business case, and we will invest to build both of their ideas into one.
Right.
Great. All right, now the intersection of AI and ideation. So our team is looking at, and we are actively embedding AI, generative AI solutions across the end-to-end innovation management program. But for this specific webinar, we'll focus on what we're doing from an ideation perspective. And when we look at generative AI, it's not just a chatbot to us. We're looking at different types of channels, mediums, audio, visual. How can we really enhance our ideation process? So what we have looked at and actually implemented are various ways, apps or tools that we use to do various things across ideation. So that could include identifying the key trends that we should ideate on and build innovation challenges around, using AI to actually develop the background for those innovation challenges. We seed our innovation challenges with AI ideas, and we blind test actually those ideas with our evaluators. We do not tell them that they are generated by AI. And we use both the human evaluations and the AI evaluations to score our idea portfolio and to provide investment recommendations. So we have actually chosen winning ideas and built POCs using AI recommendations for where to place our big bets or our investments. We use it especially with our clients to generate, when we're in our insight centers having innovation workshops, we've generated a bunch of ideas, using it to create visualizations around those ideas and build out our concepts and give us something tangible to have our key stakeholders react to. We also use it to connect us with subject matter experts across the different member firms or emerging tech areas who can provide more details, more insights, and help us build out our ideas. Various other areas, of course, where we can use AI in ideation. Now, generative AI is only as good as the data that it's trained with, fed, and all of that is already, generated by humans. So some of the concerns that I have, or, risks obviously, are over-reliance on AI. So when we do that, kind of reduces our human creativity. So balancing and being able to have that balance of the human in the loop versus the AI taking over is very important so that we can ensure, future creativity and new content, new innovations. The data limitations, obviously, with, what it is trained with, you can never train something enough. One day we'll have, a master LLM for the whole wide world. But until then, implementing that obviously costs a lot of money. The training to create new AI solutions and the skill set, coding, things like that. It's getting easier, it's getting faster, but still at this point, it's not as mature yet. But when we do implement these AI solutions, we've seen a tremendous improvement in efficiency, in time savings, in acceleration of getting, ideas to the decisioning phase, getting POCs built. It's helping our submitters become more creative and augmenting their idea submissions, making them more robust. And it's also improving accessibility to our innovation data. So we have our innovation repository, all of our submissions, all of our POCs, our innovation projects, innovation patents, engagements, trends, tech, all of that. So being able to tap into and deliver value from that innovation repository is a key win for us as well.
Maybe tapping into something that you said earlier with regards to some of the downsides, obviously data limitations, obviously the fact that it is quite expensive to deploy it yourself rather than buying a solution is also an issue. However, when it comes to buying solutions, and specifically with a lot of new technological capabilities that come with that, also comes the question of information security, right? And the version of how does that affect our IP? How does it affect data privacy? So how do you deal with those concerns whilst trying to implement these new tools within your, or embedding them within your ideation process?
Yeah, definitely major concerns all around. So we have an AIQ hub internally that is an advanced innovation space that is leveraged to foster collaboration and accelerate the development of AI solutions internally. So we can go in and build applets on it, and it's protected, it's ring fenced, it's internal, it's already, gone through all of the cybersecurity reviews and everything like that. We also work very closely with our global info security and privacy teams. And they are responsible for protecting our data, protecting our IT infrastructure, and ensuring that we are adhering to global security standards. So we always, ensure that we're working very closely with them, reviewing our infrastructure, our architecture, ensuring that we don't have, threats present. Great. All right. And then we'll wrap up with this innovation case study, co-innovation case study that we did with our clients and suppliers. So we invited 10,000 people to ideate on what Gen AI solutions can be developed to drive transformational innovation within an organization. So how can we basically how can we better innovate? There were people that were invited from over 100 countries, 30 companies, and we had a one-day challenge, and we received over 110 submissions. We chose 3 winning ideas coming out of there. And the way we chose those, we seeded some of the ideas with AI-generated ideas. We used AI as a judge, and we used AI to select and make recommendations for which ideas should be the winning ideas. And so we worked with the winning teams. 2 of these ideas were actually parallel ideas. So back to the duplicate submission process. So the democratizing access to company experts through Gen AI and the digital twin personas, we combine those together to be able to and funded one big proof of concept. And we also funded a client submission for AI-driven incubation management. All of these ideas were developed into multiple proof of concepts, actually, and they're all currently patent pending. So this type of collaboration really drives value, really accelerates, our ability to deliver new solutions to market and gives us those diverse perspectives. And we used AI as an enabler to accelerate our process, not to replace it. And so from a future of ideation perspective, we're really looking at how can we reduce the burden on our human participants and let the Gen AI do the legwork, and then have the human in the loop to validate the Gen AI work. So, instead of relying on a team of 10 people that will be scoring 100 ideas and having multiple rounds of evaluations to get to semifinals and then finalists, why don't we use AI to streamline that and then have the humans who are the subject matter professionals and have that, market insight and are on the ground doing that work, validate the AI decisions, and then go from there. So Q&A. Happy to answer any questions and happy to connect on LinkedIn as well.
Great stuff. First of all, thank you very much for the insights, Nadine. We've actually got quite a few questions and we've got a bit of time left. So I'm going to post them towards you now. So again, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A down below so that we can then select them and post them towards Nadine. So we've got a lot of questions from people all around the world, by the way. We've got a lot of a very diverse participant group. I've seen that, Roger, you're dialing in from St. Lucia in the Caribbean, so I'm a bit jealous. I'm in Miami, and I thought I was at the best location, so that's definitely great. But moving on to some questions now, Ali mentioned it in the chat already with regards to kind of transparency. Nadine, you also mentioned that, of course, you used AI and generative AI specifically in kind of a decision support system for your kind of way moving forward for your investments. Now, of course, what that comes with is a need to have a clear thread or a clear red thread in there to understand why the model has kind of, taken the decision path it has taken, so that's explainable, so it's transparent, and you can trust that. So, and how far does that actually play a role within the innovation portfolio? Is that something that you are exploring, something you're already doing, or something that's on the horizon?
Definitely. So we actually review all of the investment decisions that the AI recommends to us prior to making any final decision. We compare it with the human evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
And we also ask it to, generate the background and the feedback on the idea as to why it scored the idea that way. We also
Mm-hmm.
have comprehensive evaluation matrices. And so we have numerous evaluation criteria and a scoring rubric, and we have prompts that are built around how the AI should score, what the criteria are, what they mean, and even down to, does this idea align to the values of our firm? Is it
Oh, wow.
permissible? So we do have a very rigorous prompting and development um, technique in the background to ensure that it's as robust as possible and does not hallucinate. Although I will say, we do not ask any AI to add. We've seen a lot of hallucinations with adding. It will not add properly. So we will just take those tables and put them back into Excel. Still have to work on some things there.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Maybe following up on that question, and also to the kind of investment decisions now. You've discussed that you ideate in various different domains. So, how do you go about defining how you calculate and how you measure the return on invest in those different domains? Is there a methodology behind that? How do you approach that?
Great question, and the unsolvable problem of innovation teams worldwide. So, for our team specifically, we look at the proof of concept that have gone to market. And so we will look at the engagement revenue that has been generated and compare that to our initial investment in the proof of concept to get it to market. So for us, that is one of our main ROI calculations,
Mm-hmm.
our engagement revenue versus the investment in the POC. We have tons of metrics that we track, participation and adoption. We have tens of thousands of users of our platform, KPMG Illuminate, their engagement, are they liking, sharing, commenting, submitting, what's happening from that perspective. We have, winning ideas and the investment. We track the investment in the winning ideas and the return on that based on, from a culture perspective, from a brand perspective, uh, you know, what has that idea done for the firm and our people. We have so many different things that we track, but our key from an ROI perspective is, did the investment we make in this winning idea allow us to win any work with a client? And that's very specific to consulting firms, obviously, but yeah.
I think in general, our calculations and the way that we measure that is always, dependent on the organizational context and how we work, what our client base looks like, and what the service or the product is that we're offering. So I appreciate that. Obviously, it might be different for you as it might be different for us or any other company out there.
Yeah.
In that context, maybe coming back to some more operational details, Matt asked, are you actually using your own models that you train, or are you using third-party options out there?
Both.
Both.
So we build and we use. Yeah.
Maybe with regards to building your own, you mentioned that part of your innovation ecosystem is also kind of working with your clients. So building and deploying your own, you always need data to build, train, and also deploy. So how do you make sure that no client-specific data kind of cross-pollinates the data set that you use to train your own models?
Right. So we have some like our AIQ hub. Sometimes it is approved for client data. There are certain aspects, certain parts of it that are approved for use with client data. But for the most part, when we're in the ideation phase, we recommend that we do not include client data in there. And then we typically don't have, it's too early in the process to even have clients involved or client data involved. And then when we are doing the open innovation, we have our agreements in place beforehand as to how the data will be handled and, what will happen with that data, and all parties are involved in that upfront. So the tools that we use, like for example, the AIQ Hub, have those cybersecurity protections around it and are thoroughly reviewed and approved if that there are aspects or applets or tools within it that are permitted for client information to be used in it.
Right. So it's all about approval, making sure that it's watertight
Yeah.
before you do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Maybe give us some insight pertaining to the tools and the models that you might be using outside of what you create yourself. What solutions on the market do you use?
Midjourney, we use various LM models like, we use obviously the OpenAI, the GPT, all of the GPTs, Claude. We have, various visualization tools we use, Synthesia, things like that. There are a few others I'm blanking on the names that we use when we are in our live innovation workshops. Those I'll have to look those up again and memorize their names, but yeah, the typical that are on the market basically.
Great. Right. So we have a question from Iliriana. How do you use AI to identify the problem that needs to be solved through an innovation intervention and specifically design and execute an innovation challenge? That's a tough one.
Okay. Great question. So we feed our innovation insights process with analyst reporting, thought leadership that the firm has created, market insights and trends from third parties, all kinds of reporting, competitor information, things like that can be generated from our member firms, from various tools. So a lot of information and market intelligence and everything like that would feed our innovation repository. So when we do innovation challenges, there, like I mentioned, has to be a partner sponsor. That partner sponsor is responsible to tell us what those key innovation challenge needs are that we're solving for, and they can leverage our innovation data, or we can provide recommendations as to what that challenge question should be based on our knowledge of, these are the latest emerging tech, tools or trends in your sector or function or whatever it is. So we use AI, to kind of go through the available research and insights and reporting, and then to create our challenge background information landing page, suggest our challenge question that our participants should solve for, and create that challenge introduction.
I think that's probably something that wasn't easy to kind of facilitate at first and kind of generate when it comes to how you actually go about that. So
yeah,
in order to then also communicating it as a follow-up, I think you need some sort of leadership buy-in, right, to make sure, okay, those challenges are backed. You mentioned you need a sponsor. You've got the concept of how a challenge is being set up. So also coming back to the pitfalls, a follow-up question of Iliriana was, what have been some of the challenges in setting that up to actually secure the full support for your ideation from KPMG top leadership?
So we have some teams that, they already have a surplus of ideas. So for them to go crowdsource more ideas is not necessarily an ideal situation for them. So, in those cases, we choose not maybe to do a crowdsourced ideation. We'll choose to do some other type of ideation activity. Funding, for example, they will have funding in place in a general funding bucket, but the resources and people that need to be in place to actually execute the builds and the concept development of these winning ideas are usually not aligned, and reserved up front prior to the idea challenge launching. And so we will, have to track, hey, where are these ideas now? What happened to them? Things like that. So that's a bit challenging from our perspective. It's a bit manual for us to, follow up on those ideas and make sure that something has happened with them after that winner announcement has been made. A lot of our evaluators are subject matter professionals that are on the ground in that client sites, running their client work and engagements. So to get evaluators to set aside several hours of their time to complete scorecards or things like that, to do their manual or human evaluations is also a challenge for us. But we do as best we can to prep them, let them know, set the expectations. You will need to set aside several hours depending on the number of ideas, and we'll split up. If we received 100 submissions, 20 will go to this person, 20 will go to that person. So we divvy and conquer.
All right. Maybe one last question before we close out, because we're actually already scratching off time, and maybe also following up to what you just mentioned. Now, having this very formalized process and having the possibility to have a rigid methodology in place that allows you to evaluate, obviously also gives a lot of validity to the ideas that you then post towards, for example, a sponsor. So how have you, or anybody that is then supposed to implement that idea, right? So Matt is asking how you have actually tackled getting, you haven't tackled the senior partner, getting the senior partner to back innovations that may be seen as potentially disruptive or unfamiliar and risky to their business line. So not necessarily the better one, but the more risky one.
Yeah. So we have multiple rounds of evaluations across our innovation challenge to incorporate the diverse perspectives of the people that are reporting to that leader. And so, our first round of evaluations, will be done by the challenge management team. Our second round would be done by, let's say, the manager and director level subject matter professionals. And then, from there, we will bubble up, here are the top 5 ideas or 3 ideas or whatever it is. And then the partner will select from there. We'll tell them, this is the top idea that we're recommending. What do you think? And I've typically not experienced much pushback from partners, once they see these winning ideas, because of the rigor that we have in place to get to that point. And so even with the AI, recommendations and things like that, we will share that with them and say, here's what the humans said, here's what the AI said. What do you think? And so they're typically, very supportive of our process. I've not really had much pushback when it comes to them approving. It's more of like a validation or approval of the winning ideas versus, pushback. I guess we've been very fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, you've got the evidence to kind of say, okay, look, this. I mean, we've done our due diligence. Yeah.
All of it is data-driven decision making. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much, Nadine, for answering all those questions. We've still got quite a lot of questions in our backlog. So everybody that has participated today in this webinar, a big thank you for participating. We will follow up by sending a recording of this session, and we will also get all of those questions that we weren't able to answer during the session answered to you via that follow-up as well. Give us a couple of days to work through those questions. To everybody that has posted a question, thank you very much. To everyone that has participated, thank you very much. And a special thank you to you, Nadine, for enlightening us and showing us a bit of how KPMG is living ideation today.
My honor and my pleasure. Thank you very much for organizing this.
Great stuff. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.